Hi, everyone. I am Heather, and I want to welcome you to Magnificent Authors Podcast, brought to you by Magnificent Mamas. This is the show where we'll celebrate the magic of storytelling and the power of words. I'm your host, Heather, and each week I'll be sitting down with incredible authors from all walks of life to explore their creative journeys, uncover their writing secrets, and delve into worlds they create. Whether you are an aspiring writer, a passionate reader, or simply curious about the minds behind your favorite books, this is the podcast for you. So grab a cozy blanket, pour yourself a cup of tea, and get ready to be inspired by the magnificent authors who join us. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Heather here with Magnificent Mamas and Magnificent Authors Podcast. We are joined here today with author Cathy Shields. Cathy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I would. Thank you for having me, Heather. And I am, as you said, Cathy Shields. I wrote a book and it's called The Shape of Normal and just came out in November. And I'm happy to be here.
It looks like you've got a poster or something over there to your side of it.
Yes, that's my poster. And there's my book right here, covering my book. And it's interesting, all the things that are slowly happening as I build up more and more, eyes on who I am and what my book's about.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your book?
Yes. I wrote this book in response to years of having raised my daughter, who is now 40 in her 40s. She was born as a twin. She was a good size, 6 pounds, 8 ounces for a twin. And everything.
That's definitely good.
Yeah, everything looked pretty good now this is so 40 years ago, she's 1983 is when she was born. And she had a little bit of a problem at the beginning when the birth was first happened. They gave her some oxygen and then she was fine. An APGAR score is the way a baby looks when they're first born. If you don't know how they scored it, it's like 1 to 10, 1 to 9, I think. And she had her first APGAR score, and that's like a minute after birth, was like 5 or 6. And then after they gave her the oxygen, she came up to a 9, and she was fine. Move on, and nobody went to the NICU, and everything was great. But because they were twins, as the time went on, 6 months went by, and the other twin was doing a lot more things. This one was looking like she was lagging behind, but she was kind of catching up. And by the time she was 2, she had some significant delays. So we took her to a neurologist. He said she had cerebral palsy. And because she was a little bit she wasn't, it wasn't in severe cerebral palsy, a case of severe. It was more mild. Her speech was a little garbled, but she could walk and she could move her hands, move her body, eat by herself. And everything looked okay as far as being a 2-year-old, right? But we decided to do therapy. He said, take her to therapy and get all this intervention. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be great. She's going to be fine. She's going to grow out of it. This is a time when there was not a lot of access to Google or the internet. So I didn't know I could go research, well, what is cerebral palsy? My idea of cerebral palsy was watching telethons that were on when I was growing up in the 50s and 60s, watching kids on TV walking across the stage in walkers and wheelchairs. And that wasn't certainly not my daughter. So my idea was, okay, we're gonna fix this. She's gonna be fine after a few years of therapy. So we put her into an early intervention program. That was in place back then. And she got what was called an IEP, an individual education plan. And they put her under the physical disability category because that's what she had, cerebral palsy. But they did some IQ testing as well. For part of the whole plan was test. And they said, well, she's borderline meaning borderline on the border of not being quite normal. And the reason I named my book The Shape of Normal was because when they look at these charts, they look like a bell curve, like a bell, that shape. And she was kind of on the left-hand side of the mean in the center. So I'm thinking, okay, you're just close to enough to normal. Everything's going to be, we'll fix this. We'll get this fixed with more therapy, more interventions. And by the time she was ready to go into kindergarten, they had to do another assessment. And this assessment showed that she was way much further along on the left-hand side of that mean. So we were told that she was profound. And they did use words like retarded in 1985, 86.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, that's not right. That's not right. That test is not accurate. And I completely just fought against the results of these IQ tests. And I thought, oh, they're absolutely wrong. She doesn't look that way. She looks perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Well, and the problem was she was really cute and attractive and didn't appear to have any problem except for the speech and a few other things. And she did have delays. I mean, compared to other 5-year-olds, kids who were turning 5, she was much further. She was more like a 3-year-old. And so I kept saying, no, we're going to fix this. And I kept taking her to more and more places to have her evaluated because I'm like, they didn't get it right. Let me get this fixed. I'm a fixer. I'm going to make this all right because this is my idea of motherhood. Motherhood is supposed to be this perfectly balanced situation, and everything in my idea of how it's going to be the way I want it. My last stop was that was one of my first essays too. I wrote about the last stop was going to a developmental a center for children with not a neurological center here in Miami, and it was connected to a university program. And the neuropsychologist, I made an appointment and we come in, we bring Jessica, my daughter's name is Jessica. We bring her and he said he didn't need to see her. And we're like, what's going on? And they sit us down and they say, it's not your daughter who needs more testing. You need more therapy because you don't understand and you have not accepted anything that's been said to you. And you're in such giant denial. You need counseling. And that was the beginning of this journey of maybe 12 more years of struggling against what was the reality of it was she was going to be having special needs or an intellectual disability. And I just was so sure that I could somehow change it. And then later, as she got older and she was like 12, 13, I began to understand that it wasn't her that needed to change. It was me and my attitudes. And I finally understood I needed to fully embrace acceptance. So the story is about acceptance. It's about struggling with something that is really hard to accept and then embracing it. So the subtitle of my book is A Memoir of Motherhood, Disability, and Embracing a Different Kind of Perfect, because she is perfect exactly the way she is. It was me who needed to shift and change my attitudes
and they didn't teach that back then,
Not really. And I didn't have any experience with knowing people with disabilities. My only experience that I'd been exposed to were little things like a boyfriend saying, I have a brother, he lives in an institution. Well, I had no idea that it was it did exist back then. So, that didn't seem like that was going to be part of my life, but it certainly helped me write my book. Writing the book was very therapeutic. And so that's where the story all came from, is from going, how did I get here? And what can I tell other parents that might want to hear my message about hope and about acceptance?
How do your children feel about this book?
Her twin sister, they feel good about it. They love that their mom, who's in, in her 70s has written a book and published it with an independent press. Now I didn't have to self-publish it. I was so determined that I was going to get this done that I refused to back down every time I heard no 150 times.
Yep.
I refused. I kept just believing that it would work. And so they're very proud of me that I did it. And they also, I had to ask them, is it okay to have your names in it? Do you want me to change your names? And they agreed I could use their names and say whatever I want to say. And I gave them the opportunity to read the early drafts.
Yep.
They're too lazy to read it, but I said, whatever I put in there, I did it with respect, but you might not like everything I've written, because they were, I wrote about some of the challenges, because the story goes from birth to about age 28 for the daughter who I was writing about. So they're
Jessica, right?
Yes, her name's Jessica. So that all the things that happened between those years, they were there, part of it.
Yeah.
So
how is she doing now, and how are you doing now?
She's doing remarkably well. I think that because I was determined to help her in every way I could, that might have helped. That might have been a big impact on where she ended up. She cannot live independently because she does have a lot of limitations. But the dire outlook that I heard when she was almost 5, like she's never going to do this and she's never going to do that. She's done a lot of things. In fact, she has a part-time job. She works 1 day a week in an ice cream store with supported employment. And when she was around, well, the book ends when I'm going to tell the ending.
Don't do that. We want people to go and read the book.
Right. But she's been residing in a group home for the last few years, and she comes home every weekend. So she's home now because it's Friday afternoon, and she stays here on the weekend till like Sunday. And she likes going shopping. She likes going out to eat. She likes to be very social. But her mental age, if I were going to give her a mental age, I'd say she's around like a 5-year-old who enjoys things. 5-year-olds, she likes Disney Channel. She likes videos and she likes music, any kind of popular music. She enjoys watching that. And she surprises me sometimes still, because the other day we went to the park and she was there were signs for different areas of activities in the park, and they were having a fair, and the word pizza was on one of the signs. And she goes, "That pizza." And another sign said zoo. And she was pointing out words that I was like, wow, you can read the word zoo. Familiar words that you'd see over and over. Those are called, I guess, high frequency words. But she can't like pick up a newspaper or a book and read it. But so that's what I mean by the limitations. Or count money. But yet she can recognize this is a dollar. Like, well, I'll give her money to go shopping. She knows this is a $10 bill or a $1 bill. But there's a great deal of limitations in it. But I've got to say, I'm very proud of her that she's come this far. That's pretty remarkable.
That is, and that's really awesome that, she has such supporting family, and that, she's living her best life, not the life that, you may have wanted or pictured, but her best. And that's what's important.
Yes.
How has your family been? Have they been real supportive, you said, right, of the book?
Yes. And my husband and I have been married for about 48 years. He's still married to me. I'm still married to him.
Hey.
And I think in their quiet, stoic way, they're very proud of me. But although they don't, every time I have another win or I get another award, they're not like jumping up and down like I would do, because that's how I am. They're like, that's nice. But they're, as I said, they're quietly supportive, because that's their personalities. And besides, they've heard this story for so many years, they're like kind of sick of it. I think they are. Every time I say, "Oh, I wrote this story, you want to hear it?" They go, "Nah, yeah, same old stuff."
Yeah, definitely. So what kind of awards have you won for your book?
My book won the American Writing Award in the parenting category. And I think women on writing, the WOW, there was an honorable mention for I submitted an excerpt from the book, and it won an honorable mention. Nothing else yet, but I was invited to come to the Punch Bucket Literary Festival in September in Asheville, North Carolina, to give a reading and speak about the book and be on a panel. So I consider that a big win. So that was the latest news. I can't think of anything else that has happened. Yeah.
That is awesome. Congrats. Do you do a lot of book signings and things like that as well?
You know, when the first book first came out, I did a reading and a book launch at Barnes & Noble, and I had 40 people come. I think I sold about 25 books. Most of these people were people from my writing group and friends. Supposedly that was a good turnout. I was like, I didn't know what to expect because I'm a novice at this.
Yeah.
But I did that, and then I was invited to I live in Miami, so the Miami had a Miami-Dade Authors Fair, and I was invited to join that. So I sat at the booth and sold one book, and people would like peruse the aisles. You know, there's all these authors there with their books, and I'm like, this is not really worth it. This is not what I really want to do, sit there with my books and try to hawk my book. I'd rather do podcasts and work on my newsletter and write short essays that I think that's a better way for me to connect with people. Because I think it's a little hard for people to schedule. I'm going to go out and I'm going to go to this book fair or that book fair. However, that big one in North Carolina, well, they want me to talk. So that's kind of thrilling.
It's one of those days, So do you have any future plans to write more books or stories?
I was getting started on the next book, and then I thought I still want to try to promote this one. Mm-hmm. And the way I think, for me, the best way to do it is to, as again, I said, speak on podcasts, and then write short essays. So I just submitted an essay and got a win from one place that said, yeah, we want it. I wrote a pitch. So right now I'm focusing on writing short stuff because writing a book took, several years for me. And I had a lot of writing classes. So I think I spent about 10, 15 years really working on it. And what happened was when I'm a retired teacher and I was teaching kindergarten. So in the afternoon, when the kids went home, I would write little blurbs or little things that happened. Oh, this happened. Oh, she did this the other day. Oh my God, I'm so frustrated. And I'd write these little, incidents down. And after I had 50 pages, I'm thinking, I might have a book here. And but that took a lot of years to assemble it after I really started going, I do have a book. When I retired, when I retired is when it took off for me, is to finish writing it, to really hone in on how do I become a better writer. And I really started practicing, well, I'm going to do this. And so I kept submitting essays, and I think I had 18 of them accepted before the book came out.
Oh, wow.
And it was but it was a challenge because I had no idea. I didn't major in creative writing. I was elementary school. I was teaching kindergarten. But the passion behind it, the passion behind the project was what drove me. I'm passionate about this, and this is what I want to talk about. And I want to tell people about this. Maybe they'll be interested.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it sounds like a really good story and something a lot of people can relate to, honestly, because there's so many differences, there's so many disabilities, and we always want to try to fix things, but sometimes we need to focus on ourselves first and realize there's just going to be things in life we can't fix. And we have to make life the best possible.
Right.
If that makes sense.
And I also, as I was writing, I had to be sensitive to people that I'm writing about someone who has a disability. I don't have one. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to think about how to be sensitive to people who are not cognitively impaired. Maybe they're physically impaired, and to be gentle with how I use language, how I present things. But I'm coming from the point of view of the caretaker.
Yeah.
And the mother. And this was, so my story, I'm not defending it. I'm just saying that the early drafts I would get, well, you can't write about your daughter. She has to have her own voice. I am her voice. She doesn't have a voice to be able to do this. So I wrote an essay for Brevity blog about that. Am I allowed to write this book? Because it was questioned. It was interesting to be challenged. Like, you can't write that.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe I can't. Maybe I shouldn't.
I think, writing it from the caregiver's view, there's a lot of people that have been in similar shoes as you. And maybe, they will find your book very relatable.
Well, that's what I've heard from the feedback is that it is. It's just, I can't figure out how to get the word, so to speak, out there. Maybe I'll win another contest. I mean, I've entered a couple of them, and then
that's awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah,
a little bit more in general. So we want to thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for taking the time out of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Heather, for having me. It was a joy to talk to you.
You're welcome. And everyone, don't forget to check out Cathy Shields' book. And the books that may come in the future. Hence, I said books. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And thank you, everyone, for listening today. And that's a wrap on another episode of Magnificent Authors Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. It was a pleasure to share another inspiring conversation with a talented author. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Magnificent Authors Podcast so you don't miss any of our upcoming conversations with amazing writers. And be sure to check out Magnificent Mamas on our website, which is www.magnificentmamas.us, or on our Facebook page for more inspiring content from incredible authors. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. What resonated with you the most? Head over to Facebook or leave a comment on our website and let me know. Until next time, keep reading, keep writing, and keep those imaginations soaring.